Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is the Book Break. Today, I'm really excited about our guest because he is a World War II historian who has an amazing book that's actually about his own parents and other real people in World War II. So, Ken is joining us through audio, and I'm going to bring him in. Kenneth D. Evans. Thank you so much, Ken, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me on.
So we're going to be talking about your book, Missing. Okay, so before we dive deep into the book, I'd like to bring up a video. So we're going to watch this video. It's just a little bit under 3 minutes, and it's amazing.
As he pulled up from his strafing run, Second Lieutenant Donald N. Evans looked back over his shoulder and saw the Tiger tank bellowing black smoke. Suddenly, his P-47 was rocked by German anti-aircraft cannon. Don's wingmen screamed into the radio, "Evans, you're on fire! Bail out!" The engine exploded and his plane burst into flames. From dirt-poor, small-town roots, Don was the quintessential all-American boy, high school student body president, and star athlete. At age 18, he was attending college, had fallen in love, and appeared destined for a bright future. Then, fate stepped in. Don joined the United States military along with millions of other young Americans and went to war. Before going overseas, Don married his high school sweetheart, Laura Jean. They promised to write every day.
On Christmas Eve, 1944, as I lay on the floor by the Christmas tree, wondering how Don was spending his time that night, I had a disturbing premonition. I knew something had happened to him, and I couldn't get it out of my mind.
Against all odds, Don survived bailing out of his burning plane seconds before it crashed. Lost, cold, and hungry, he spent Christmas Eve, huddled under a pine tree, wondering if he'd ever see his family again. Ahead lay capture by Nazi SS troops, a 200-mile forced march, near starvation, abuse by guards, and internment in a German POW camp. This is his story.
Ken, what would you say is one of your favorite stories from the book?
One of the few stories my father actually shared during his lifetime and openly was about a life-changing experience he had after he was shot down over the Battle of the Bulge. Was part of a forced march through Belgium into a German prison camp. And along the way, there was a bombing raid. It was actually his old squadron and fighter group of P-47 fighter planes bombing the city. And he and the other POWs took cover near the walls of a bombed out apartment complex. As he was leaning up against the door, he talked about how the door opened and his first impression was that someone was going to shoot him. And instead, a little old German lady stepped out, and in his words, he wrote, "Dressed in layers of old tattered and torn clothing and to protect her from the cold, she held out her hand and put some hard rock candy into my hand. There she was in ragged clothes in a war-torn city, somehow surviving in a partially destroyed apartment without heat or electricity, bombs blasting all around her, having no doubt had family members killed in the war, with every right to hate me, her enemy. Instead, she shared part of her precious Christmas candy with me. Then she looked me into my eyes and said, "God signatich." Her example softened my heart and provided me with one of the greatest learning experiences of my life, one I'll never forget. And I can't even begin to explain how good those little pieces of candy tasted.
That's great. I want to show a map that we have from your book, and this actually shows where this happened. He was shot down and captured on Christmas Day, and inhumane treatment by the guards, forced to march, and then we see on there the German lady Christmas candy experience. So you can see in here the place where this happened. Now, I want to back up just a little bit and talk about your parents for a minute, because part of this book is a love story. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring up some pictures right here. This was where they got married, October 14th, 1943. And they got married while he was already in the Air Force, right? Or the Army Air Force, right?
Yes, he was in training in Texas at several different bases. He and my mother dated. She was, before he went into the military, she was 17 years old and a senior in high school. He was 2 years older in college at age 18 when he entered the military. And neither of them were of age to be married. And so my grandmothers on both sides took a train to South Texas and were required to be there to give permission for them to be married.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to go through a couple other pictures in your book in our last little bit of time. And we're going to bring up another picture here. And one of the things that you talk about in there is his camaraderie with the Five. And tell me a little bit more about the Five.
They were all together in training in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where they started flying and training in P-47 fighter planes. In the course of writing the book, I discovered that on the top right corner, or on the left in the top picture, I found out that was the guy I was named after.
Oh, wow.
They became very close, and they were together throughout the war, which was amazing. They went from training to training and ended up in England together for final training, and then were stationed on the continent on Normandy Beach.
That's great. Let's go ahead and pull up just the last couple of pictures that we have. Now, for those viewers out there, these pictures are in the book, and there are a ton of wonderful, beautiful pictures. And Ken, you were able to take these pictures from scrapbooks, from letters. And so when your father wrote home to your mother and he drew her a little picture, and I think this is great. And this was of his quarters, right?
That was one of the places they stayed. It was a half blown up chateau that had some rooms and partial roof. And so they were crammed into a small room, and the five of them were still together.
That's great. That's great. And then something that I've talked with you about before that I think is so incredible is when your father was rescued and able to leave, he went and got his file out of the camp, right?
Correct. This picture is an amazing one. This was after a 200-mile, 14-day march in bitter cold weather, one of the coldest winters in Germany. And my father, I remember him commenting, saying, I really didn't look that bad considering what I'd gone through.
Yeah.
And my brother commented, gee, Dad, didn't look like you were shaving yet.
That's great. And then we have a map of where he was at too. And I think this is just an incredible thing that they can see where they were. And then we also have the telegrams that were sent to your mother when he went missing in action. And so this is really amazing for those that I mean, to just think about how your mother must have been feeling. And then when he was found alive, we have that telegram right here. And again, just the thought of how your mother must have been feeling when she found this. Did she give you any insight on how she was feeling when she saw these?
She was notified that it's a prisoner of war. She hadn't received letters for some time and knew something was wrong. And months later, when the second telegram came, she initially feared that it would be notification of his death.
Yeah.
And yet she was elated. So within months, she had run just across the street where her family lived from the government building. The first time in tears, thinking that her life was over. Yeah. And the second time, screaming with joy.
So I encourage everyone to check this book out. And thank you so much for being here with me, Ken.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
And thank you all for joining us here on the Book Break. I'll see you next time.